Hi, and welcome to Music Calgary's Sound Off Summit Back on Track series. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 nations in southern Alberta and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the panel. Hello and welcome everyone to Conference Preparation 101 with Natalie Kleinschmit. My name is Jess Knights. I'm a Calgary artist, Calgary industry person, and I'd like to welcome you all to this session today. In the spirit of reconciliation, we like to acknowledge that we live, work, play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all the people that make their home on the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. I will pass it off to you, Nat. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here.
Okay, well, thank you, Jess. Thank you, Music Calgary, Colleen, those of you who are here. It is a real pleasure to be here to talk about conference preparation. It's a key part of any artist's career if you are choosing to take a commercial route and want to connect with people. So we're going to be able to hop into that. I'm going to share the screen, and we tested it, so the whole thing should work. And let me just put that on full view and we'll be good to go. Okay, so let's go. So I am in Winnipeg, so greetings from the Treaty 1 territory. And I find it important to share these acknowledgements at a time when we're communicating through the screens and everything seems so virtual and everything seems so elusive, and just here for a moment. And it's a good reminder to remember that we are on lands that have been traversed by people for millennia, and that there's so much wisdom to be found in that. So it's been interesting over the years that I've worked in music and in culture to see how these acknowledgements have been a checking in and realizing that there's just it's so easy to get lost in the music career and the industry and, you know, like all the hype. It's good to anchor ourselves at times. And that's the spirit in which I like to work and like to be here. So it's good to be with you. I'd like to be in Calgary, though. I had a lot of fun at Calgary Folk Fest a couple years ago, and I kind of like it over there. I have a nephew who also moved it and keeps telling me that Calgary is the best place in the world to live in Canada. So I'm almost a Calgary girl. So let's start with the artist here. So I've got a lot of slides, and what I propose is I'm going to zip through its different sections, sort of like, first of all, like what's a showcase, a bit of background. Then we'll go into behind the scenes and then what to do before, during, and after. And what I'm going to do with you is share some of the things that I've seen. My background, I don't know how much you know about me, but my background was for 30 years, I was a consultant working with multinationals, and I always worked with artists sort of as on the side when I'd come home to Winnipeg from one of my trips, and hit a point in my life where I didn't think multinationals would save the world, and artists might. And my kids were graduating and saying, what are we going to do with our life? And I was like, well, who do you like to hang out with? What do you like to do? And I thought, wow, I like to hang out with artists and I like to work on business plans. So that was the moment I decided to work with artists. I worked with some not-for-profit organizations here, including a Francophone one. I was the ED of that. And then I fell in love with the music of William Prince, an artist in Manitoba, and found myself becoming a music manager and working with him until he got too big. And it was great for him to be able to move on, and found 6 shooters who are massive. So that was part of my trajectory. And I like working with artists when they're emerging, just in that moment, just to set things straight with them. Created MyArtist.Life as a platform during the pandemic to bring artists together in community and in learning, and kind of put the equivalent of an MBA course for artists online through about 40 webinars over the course of the 2 years. And today I am executive director part-time of a visual arts center with art lessons and paintbrushes and the rest. And I kind of miss the music. So I'm really happy to be here tonight and get back into the kind of the industry talk. Um, but it's not just industry, is it? Right? You start music when you're a kid. People forget the craft involved in becoming a musician, learning the music to play, to sing. Then if you're into songwriting, that's a whole other craft too. So there's years of work before you hit the time. And here's Tyler. We got Tyler, and he's like, okay, we got our tracks being mastered. We're ready to release. I keep saying launch. That's my French side. I have to change that. Release my album. You say lancer un album. Faux Amis, Penelope. I've been doing it for 10 years, but I'll keep working at it. We really hope to open our doors to touring. So often you're told, okay, come out with an album, new music, new project. Yay, we're going to tour. So what should we do? Like, how do you tour? How do you tour when you're thousands of kilometers away from everything else? It's not easy in Western Canada. Well, we're based here, we're based there, wherever. We're looking at showcasing. So what do you think? Should we go for showcase? Well, what do you think? And that's kind of a question a lot of artists ask. You're told, especially if you're involved in music industry associations, you start doing a few gigs at home, you're really excited about the creativity, everybody's really excited about your music, and you're like, okay, we're going to start. And you want to get out of the hometown, there's a bit of interest, and people say, you should showcase. That's the way you jump forward. And you're like, well, let's see, should we or not? So it depends. So what showcasing is, it's an event that allows artists, that opens artists to opportunities. It's about connecting the artist to an opportunity. But behind the word showcase, there are lots of different realities, right? Like there are different types of showcases and the rest. What do you understand for showcase? So you've been to Canadian Music Week or some of the other ones. What was it for you before you went, and what did you discover there, Michael, for example?
Yeah, my band got to perform at one of the venues during Canadian Music Week and attend the conference and learn from different industry people and learn about anything from performance to writing to just being a musician to the business side of things. So for me, the definition of showcasing is showing your skills or introducing yourself to an audience that doesn't know you or to people who have never heard of you. So it's like a first impression. It's almost like an audition or a job interview, but at the same time, it's also a performance. You still need to bring the energy. It doesn't have to be very formal, but you should be professional. So it's this weird kind of mix of business and like art, because you kind of do have to represent more than just your music. You have to also present yourself as a person they want to work with.
Yeah, and you just, thank you so much. And you brought up so many interesting things. So somebody who's never been to a showcase and is going to think, okay, you're performing. Oh, but you went to conferences. So now I'm totally confused, right? Like, and that's the thing about showcases, that at the end of the day, what you're right, it's like an audition. We organize an opportunity for you to play in front of an audience, and we'll look at who that audience is in a minute. And then around the showcase, all sorts of things happen. So since you've already had it, I'm going to kind of zip through these, but I think it can be interesting to see it. I'm very visual, so I tend to sort of draw things out a little bit. Oh my gosh, that wild noise is my cat having zoomies. So yeah, shush. I'll try not to swear because this is going to be like it's being recorded, but he's evil when he does this. Anyway, as long as nothing breaks. So the opportunity that we're talking about here is we're looking at a prospect that's going to lead you to something else, to advancement and success. And of course, what those words mean is very personal. What is success? That's going to be something we'll talk about in detail. So whether right now, in fact, what is the success you're aiming for? And I think it's really important for every artist to already ask that question before you even apply for a showcase. Like, what does success look like for me? I think for so long, especially before the pandemic, there was only one model for success that was recognized by people. It was the commercial aspect of selling records, performing at shows, being famous, and then, all the perks that come with that. And there are 30,000 artists, whether where a lot of people are quitting, but let's say there are 30,000 artists, you might have 3,000 that are full-time and maybe 300 who are performing regularly and doing all right, and then 30 doing really well, and 3 who might be mega superstars, right? So it is a pyramid. And I think it's an absolute myth to think that you have to go through it and by process of elimination, not hit success. This is the it. People are always like, oh, do you think he's going to make it? Do you think she's going to make it? And I'm like, well, this is the it. Like, are you waking up happy and healthy? Can you pay the rent? Can you think one day of buying a house? Probably not if you're in Vancouver or Toronto, but if you're in Calgary or Winnipeg, you can still imagine those things, and you should be able to. It shouldn't be either or. And so success can be defined on your own terms. And for some people, like, we need music everywhere. Music is one of the most important needs we have as humans, on the same level as like food and breathing for some scientists. So music, it brings us together, it socializes us, it heals us, it brings beauty. There's so much that we can do with music outside of that commercial track, whether it's in the schools, in the hospitals, in the streets, being a resident band, sort of playing at the same bar every weekend, can also bring a lot of stability and a lot of joy to people. So I have no opinion about what somebody else's success should be, except that you should define it for yourself. Because if you don't know what it is, somebody else is going to tell you. And the fun thing is, nobody agrees. You'll have a record label and you'll have a tour agent, and the agent will tell you, forget, nobody sells records, so like just focus on the performance. And then you're gonna have the label saying, okay, like, forget touring because you never make money at it, we can make it happen. And then you have the publisher kind of snickering behind saying, forget all of that, just write really good songs. We can make money with your songs. And so they're all right and they're all wrong. Like, at the end of the day, you decide. So it starts with your intention. And this is the longest I'm going to spend on any slide, because I think it's the most important thing, which is, what's your what for? Like, what are you doing this for? And if you can't answer that question, you need to. What is your intention? And I take this word intention. It's actually an artist in Winnipeg called Scott Nolan. He had shared this with William. William had talked to me about it. And then I just suddenly started seeing it everywhere. And I think we need an intention for our lives. I think we need one for our careers. I think we need one for our album project. I think every song should have an intention. When you explain it, sometimes it comes naturally, but when you share it with others, you have to set it in a context. I think every show, you need to set your intention before you go on stage, because you might be doing the same show 100 times, but for the audience, it's the first time they see you. So that intentional way of living is a really beautiful way of being an artist. And if you're intentional about a showcase, then you kind of set the stage for everything else to happen. No pun intended. I have to stop saying set the stage, but you know what I mean. Okay, so what are the opportunities? So it might be for you, well, I want more gigs and performances. And there are showcases where they have the presenters. So the presenter is the one who's going to present your show. In French, Pénélope, les diffuseurs. And you have showcases and they bring in all the different people who are running programs. And that's not Breakout West. And I'll show you what the difference is in a sec. But it might be radio. There are showcases where you play your music only in front of radio or music supervisors. So sometimes if you're looking for that direct, very specific thing, you look for the showcase that will bring you to those audiences. It might be building a team. So this is closer to it. This is what Breakout West does for you. Breakout West says, we're not going to bring 200 theaters to hear you sing, which you might find in an Alberta showcase, Manitoba showcase, or some of the others. But we're going to bring you the agent who will then find you the 100 shows. We're going to connect you to a record label who will bring your project to other countries. We're going to find you a publicist who's going to get your message through, or the publisher who will help place your songs. So it could be, oh, I want to look for a team. What else could you go to a showcase for? What are some other things you might go for? Any ideas?
Just exposure and promotion of your music, getting it to a wider audience, learning different skills as well.
Okay, well, let's flip it around. Let's go to that first part and saying exposure. So I don't think exposure in itself is an objective. I think it's being seen by XXX. Do you know what I mean? So who would be the people that you want to be seen by?
Definitely radio, getting music into movies and TV is something I'm interested in as well. That's just me personally. I'll let other people talk about it.
No, but that's actually perfect as an example, right? So it's not I want exposure. It is I want the music supervisors who are present to hear my music, and possibly a publisher that can help you also with the placement, so that, and then you have to finish the sentence, so that my music might make me lots of money by being put in a commercial television show or the rest. What about you, AJ? What would you be looking for? And I think Michael, we might be caught on your screen. It looks like you are the speaker right now, but that's more for
sorry.
No, that's not you. I'm just giving the heads up to Jess. I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna mute and turn my. Let's see. Hello. No, it's not coming back to me. It doesn't matter. People can hear us. AJ, if you were going to go to Breakout West, what would you be looking for at this stage in your career? You've rebranded or recouped a new name, Peach Panic.
Yeah, it's hard for me to speak without the rest of the band here, but we've talked about this extensively, especially since the whole, rebranding thing, and we're definitely all of the page that we're all on the page that we need a team for sure. There are, we like to think that we work hard, but there are just some things that we can't do ourselves. We need people to help us, and obviously, the more people you have on your team, the easier it is to do things, the easier it is to delegate these things. So really, if we were to do Breakout West, it would be that. It would be wanting to build a team and start that in order for us to get more shows. Ultimately, is that would be like probably our number one intention. Again, I hate to.
You love the performing. Well, it's what you answered is really great, and I think it's really interesting too. When you say we work hard, but because you work hard, you get more opportunities. Therefore, you're busy writing songs and performing, and it becomes a time thing more than an effort thing, right? And when your time is full with the art, then you need other people who are going to come along and take on the roles and then create even more opportunities. It becomes a sort of one of those virtuous cycles. Okay, good. Just reassured me that the speaker view is all good. Amazing. Once I recorded one of my videos and it was all of like somebody else looking at their computer, not necessarily listening either. So it was like disappointing. Okay, but you're all here and you're all smiling, so it's all good. Let's continue. Here's some other things you might find too. You might look at a showcase, and I have worked with artists where we've said, okay, this is a great time for us to meet some artists east of Canada so that we can create maybe co-billing opportunities. Or, oh gosh, I've always wanted to meet that one artist to do some co-writes. Okay, well, at the conference, it's a great chance to, connect and, have a chat together. It's a good opportunity too, and people don't always think of it, but your funders and organizations, for example, SOCAN, AMROC, all of the rights organizations are usually present. They will be at Breakout West, they usually are. And it is life-changing to actually have a discussion with somebody from Factor so that they can put a face to a name. And sometimes they'll just explain something that's been eluding you. And it's so simple when somebody just clarifies it. Or you don't even have to talk shop. Sometimes it's just connecting with them and getting to know what their language is and what their priorities are. Because when we're artists, we're so focused on our own life and our own priorities and our own day-to-day that we forget that every organization is also facing their challenges, their needs. If you're a festival, you have certain needs that are being asked for by the government, by the audience, by the public. And so if the artist understands that, you can be a better team person in that festival when it's taking place. Same thing with the funders, what's hot, what's not. There was recently the music, the Unison Relief Fund. I hope you both applied for it, the $2,500 one-time grant. It's still open until March next year. Unison dispenses it, and they needed people to apply for it, and they needed people to express why, as musicians or artists, $2,500 could make a huge difference, because then it allowed them, as the advocates for artists, to go to the government and say, hey, we got 20,000 people telling us they can't pay rent, and you want to put festivals on, and you want the industry to continue. Maybe we take care of artists, right? So whether they're funders, organizations, or others, everybody's coming looking for something. So the opportunities happen when what you're looking for is what they're looking for, or what you offer is what they're looking for, and vice versa. So just keeping your mind open, it's not just about the show or just about the label or just even the radio, which I didn't know at first. And then I met these people from radio. So lots of people gather. Learning is the other one, and you mentioned that too. There are a lot of reasons for the learning. You can develop skills. You can get feedback. Sometimes they'll invite you to present a song or your website, and then you get feedback. It's a little daunting, but super useful. But the thing I find most interesting is trend spotting. If you go to a conference or two, you're going to hear buzzwords, or you're going to hear subjects of conversation. You're going to hear things. This. When you hear the same thing 7 times, it's like, oh, something's going on, or even 3 times. And the magic happens when you start spotting a trend and you can get in on it while it's happening instead of following it behind, right? Like if you're part of that wave. So, all sorts of things I learned just from sitting in the conference rooms and listening to people and watching people and looking at, the dynamics and what was going on. So the one thing to know about the showcase, and I'm going to focus a lot of this on Breakout West, but it's true for others. At the end of the day, it's a marketing opportunity. So what you said earlier, you get a chance to present. So the showcase for it is you get to present your music to a targeted audience. And there has been some discussion in the past about, well, I'm playing in a festival, so I should get paid. And then the union was getting involved, and a couple of festivals ago was there trying to make a ruckus. And I was like, just a sec. And it was something when I was at Breakout West that we clarified. It is a marketing opportunity, which means you get something for coming. You're not just giving us money, and we're not just living the high life. Here is what you are paying and contributing in finance, in effort, in music, and in exchange, this is what you can expect from us. So why is it a festival as opposed to a hotel room? Some conferences are closed audiences, 100 people. Everybody gets to be seen by 100 people, and it's a little bit of it's almost like auditions, right? The reason Breakout West and a few like Canadian Music Week and others present you in front of a live audience in a festival setting is to give you the best opportunity to shine, because their experience shows that artists are much more comfortable when they can play in front of an audience of just normal people who aren't there just like, I've been to showcases where they're with the notebook and they're like looking at you and the rest, and that's a little, you kind of get over it after a while. It's part of like, that's the job, right? But so that's why. But even though you are playing and the audience is paid maybe $20 for a pass, that's not how the organization is making money. Their role and purpose is to create an opportunity for you to be seen by the right people so that you can get to the next stage of your career. And if they didn't do that, they wouldn't get funding anymore, and they would die as an organization. So we need to keep that clear, that it's a marketing opportunity. It's part of the work that you do to be seen, and I don't want to say sell yourselves because that sounds really bad, but to be seen and sell your show. And so the stage I just said can be a public festival, private space. It could be a hotel room, like if you've been to like Folk Music Ontario, it used to be in all the little, people would have these little guerrilla showcases. And even online is a great opportunity to showcase when you're doing, some people are like, oh, I hate those live streams. Well, if you got shitty music and the rest, it's not serving you. But a few people invested in good equipment, and thanks to the live stream show, got some live gigs after because they built up a bit of a connection. So your music is a live performance, and the targeted audience that we're going to talk about are the industry professionals. And anybody who's an industry professional is basically somebody who works in music who isn't carrying a guitar or singing in a mic. Or maybe backstage too. The technical teams are really, really important. And we can't forget them. They're kind of part of your crew. So the Breakout West example, I love this photo. I took it off the video from Breakout West in 2019. It's Alpha Toshineza, but it's a picture. He sang at one of the events sort of where we brought people. But this is what you see, right? I liked it because it was the point of view from the artist, what you see. And you see people, and they're pretty sweet. You know, they're in their lanyards, a bit intimidating. But I can tell you that nobody goes into music for the glory and the money, because there's very little of both. You go in it because you love, well, either you love the person or you love the music, right? That tends to be kind of the gateway. But when you really love the music, you go in hoping you're going to hear something great. You're not there trying to be mean or anything. And I think there have been a few stereotypes, and maybe people got tired or jaded. Maybe there was a bit of that before the pandemic. But if they're still around now, it's because they love music. So you have a well-intentioned crowd in front of you. And I took some names here just from the Breakout West of who's coming to this Breakout West. And you can see all sorts of different roles. So you have Misfit Music Management, Elise Roller. You've got your Friendly PR. So now we know what they do because it's the name of their company. I'll come back to Andy in a sec. You've got Kim Temple, who's the Music Publishers of Canada. Gabriella, who runs Glam Rock Agency in Latin America. I think she's based in Mexico City, but she's brought quite a few artists down to Latin America. And you might not think of that. And I mention her because you can go set your intention and say, okay, I want to find somebody who's going to help me tour, let's say the States or, you know, Eastern Canada. But always be ready to have a wild card, like be open to that opportunity. Somebody who's just crazy about your music and they're like, I can bring you to, you know, I can bring you to Argentina. And you're like, yeah, Argentina, February, that's starting to sound pretty good. Okay. And sometimes it's good to just go. You've got to measure, is this a distraction from what I want to do? And it can be. If you go and you're just going to take whatever's coming, you'll still be there and turning in circles. That I've seen. But if you go and you've got a firm intention, you know who you want to see in the rest, and you happen to get an opportunity, you listen to yourself. And if your heart's saying, like, just go for it, whatever. At the very worst, it'll just be a really fun experience chapter in brackets in my career. You go, and some of the artists who've played in her festival have had a lot of fun. You have other, just the profile here. So she is an agent who gets gigs and works and brings Canadian artists there. Sometimes there are direct buyers or presenters, like Glastonbury Festival. And often they're brought in to share their experience of what a festival might be like in England, especially one of the most iconic ones. So it's more for the learning experience. The chances of a Winnipeg, Manitoban or Western Canadian band being booked for Glastonbury like this week is probably not going to happen right away. However, these relationships build, and what's happened is I've seen people who have really important festivals who were invited by Breakout West years ago, and they saw somebody, the glimmer of potential, remembered them. And then when they were breaking out and when they were ready, because you have to be ready to go on the big stage, otherwise a wasted opportunity. Like I remember, and then they had the bragging rights, you know, saying, I remember, you know, watching them play for like 50 people in the back room of the bar in, you know, Regina or whatever. And now they're on a world stage and, you know, playing with the greats. So it's always interesting, you know, if you're going to a conference and you see they're speaking, you go to listen to them and learn. It's not necessarily, oh, please hire my band. It's how long you've been together? Oh, 5 months. They're not going to hire you, but they're going to observe you. And, you know, life is long. I just got a call 6 years later from a music supervisor, and I pitched some music of a couple of artists in Manitoba. I was just starting, and there was one, she was only on my roster, I think, for about 1 or 2 months, just while I was starting. And they wanted her music. They still had the file in the email I had sent. So it was kind of funny to say, oh, here's her number, call her directly. But, you know, it's life is really long. Like it's hard to think of that when you want gigs next week, next month, and you have the bills to pay. But there are opportunities that come years later, and people talk. So for example, you might find somebody like Kate, and there's an agent in England who might have heard about you maybe at Canadian Music Week in the spring after Breakout West and say, oh, I remember them. Oh yeah, I saw them at Breakout West, or you know what, really good guy. We had a really interesting conversation. I can't tell you exactly, but I remember I liked the music, or there was something there. And sometimes that validation is what gets you the gig. You're going to find also delegates like Andy Jones has been a long time delegate. Andy Jones runs the Breakout West for Wales. So Welsh artists who are breaking out of their region. And he comes to Breakout West because there's a partnership. So every year, 2 Welsh artists come to Western Canada and 2 Western Canadians go to Focus Wales, and some of the organizations send a few more, because it's kind of fun if you go to showcases in England or some of the internationals, like you're competing with so many people, but when you can take a baby step into these regions that are just off the main thoroughfare, you'll often make the connections that are the ones that allow you to land somewhere, and then you build from there. If you can get a gig and tour in Wales, it's so easy then to hop on a train, go to London, do a few shows the next time you go, and then you build from there. But if you try and go directly to London, going to the Great Escape, for example, which is another showcase, it's almost too much of a leap. So, you know, Breakout West as an organization has years of experience, and they've been watching and strategizing. So they bring the people who are going to help you hop to the next one. So I'm just going to move forward. We've almost finished this first section here. So it is expensive getting a showcase. There is funding. We're lucky in Canada that we have it, but we have to consider this an investment in any case, because even if your expenses are covered, you're still putting in time, and you're also putting in time where you're not playing and you're not doing other things. So there's the opportunity cost. So when you factor all of that in, having your intention and knowing where you're going just makes sense, right? And with that intention comes, well, what am I going for? And I think one of the things that has been confusing for a lot of people is, what is a showcase? Like, not all showcases are the same. So there are lots of different formats, and each showcase actually has a specific role. So you take Canadian Music Week that you already spoke to. Canadian Music Week brings together the industry and happens to also show artists. I probably shouldn't say that on a recorded session, but anyway, that's my take on it. And so if you like to play at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in front of like the bar band and whoever is, left over, fine. If you go to Canadian Music Week, it makes sense when you already have a team and they can bring you things, when they can negotiate a better spot, or if you're going as part of a course, or if you're actually going to take advantage of the learning component. There are a lot of good reasons to go to Toronto. I don't need any reason to go to Toronto. I'll just go to Toronto, and that's like my excuse. But it's a very different one from Breakout West, where everybody in the team knows all artists, but there's still going to be like 50 to 60 of you. And every province, Breakout West is sort of owned or exists because of the Western Canadian Music Alliance, which is Alberta Music and BC Music, Manitoba Music, Sask Music. And so everybody's kind of vying for their own artist, right? So understanding who it belongs to. Indie Music Week is another one, but that's a private organization. So their goals are not going to be the same as a provincially mandated organization. So you have to do your homework on who owns the showcase, what is their purpose, who do they bring, how do they make their money? I mean, I creep everybody, but it's like, okay, am I the product or am I buying a product? You know, it comes down to that. Folk Music Ontario, if you do heavy metal, don't go to Folk Music Ontario. It's a really cool, unless you just want to party. It's a very fun festival, but it's a great place to connect with folkies. If those are your people, go. If you're a jazz musician, go to the jazz showcases. If you're more theatrical, a lot of the Francophone performances are very much like, I don't want to say contrived, but they're very set up. Like the show in itself, you sell a show, you don't sell an artist playing songs, you sell a show. So it's very much aligned with theater and performance art. So a lot of the showcases will have music, but also circus acts and comedy and plays. So it's a different vibe. If you're more into pop music, rock music, you might go to a showcase where it's clubs looking for clubs and tourists. So you need to begin by saying, what is this animal that I'm discovering? Who owns it? What is their purpose? Who's funding it? And if the government of Canada is funding export opportunities, that tells you a lot about the showcase compared to if it's, for example, the Manitoba showcase, where it's not about taking artists and bringing them out of the country. It's about bringing artists to tour in Manitoba. So you bring artists from all over into Manitoba. And those are the basic questions. Breakout West, what do you think it's about? Just look at the name. If we just look at the name. Oh, that'll come later. I'm going to go back. Break it. We'll hop this. We'll skip it when we get to it. But just Breakout West, just by the name. What do you think it's about?
Western artists trying to break out.
Go.
of
Genius, like
Calgary.
a genius name. Yeah. So it's in the name. We take Western Canadian artists and we get them out of the West. That's a very different thing from bringing artists from around the world into the West for presenters. But an organization owned by presenters is going to be about looking for variety, right? So, okay, you've got all the behind the scenes stuff, but it just allows you to read a little bit better and maybe save you a couple $1,000 or a few $1,000 down the road. I'll go through this quickly because you've talked about it. We know there's music, usually in the form of a festival, or it can be shows. Mondial Montréal has 2 stages and they alternate. You get your 20 minutes, then the next 20 minutes, and the crowd just goes between the 2 stages and they hear all the music. So it's only 30 artists, very curated, and it's mostly just a music. But some have a conference and the conference becomes the draw. And what's cool is they bring in the international delegates and the deal is we'll fly you in, but then you have to speak at the conference and share your knowledge. So it becomes a really good learning platform. And then there are often other activities and we don't think about those, but it could be awards, whether it's the Junos or the Western Canadian Music Awards. It could be networking activities. It could be an Indigenous Music Summit, a Women's Music Summit, technology and music. It could be the Radio Host Summit, but there's often a whole lot of other stuff going on at the same time. There's a Kids Fest, for example, at Breakout West. If you're a kids performer, even if you're not showcasing, it's kind of good. You get to hang out with other artists and maybe meet some buyers who are interested in that. So the opportunities link you up music, the industry pros come. Then you have a chance also behind the scenes. They don't put this always on the website, but there's often a marketplace where they bring in suppliers. It's a way of making money for conferences who will sell you guitar strings to magazines. And that's where a lot of those funders and organizations come and they try and get you to sign with them. You often have export development sessions or one-on-one meetings where you can choose to meet people and you get to meet 5 people a day and you get these speed dating with people. So all those aspects, they're all activities that are opportunities for you too. And then just the networking. Just usually there's cocktail hours or parties or other events. So that's kind of like every showcase, conference or festival you go to is going to have either all of these or some of these. And then based on your intention, you just kind of pick and choose which ones they are. And so with Tyler, what does he need right now? Well, it depends. It's the fit. So I'd say, okay, he's just coming out with an album. So he's going to want radio time, get that out there. But what he wants is touring. So he might be ready when you've got music and you haven't released it yet. That's a good time to look for a team, because the team, if you come and you've got an album that's already a year out, but you haven't finished the cycle, even if they're interested in you, it's very rare that they'll take you on mid-course. So if you've got new music and they already know you a little bit, that's usually when you'll get their attention. So the 3 questions, magic questions, and I ask them for everything, like why me, why them, why now? Or why this project, why now, why them? It's always like, why should they be interested in my project? What's that link? And why is the timing now, not a month ago, not in 5 years? And why them and me? What's that relationship? So for example, if you are really into the environment and your music's about that, and you've got an environmental group that's looking for a partner, well, you've already got that. But why now? Oh, because there's a political campaign coming up and you do protest songs around the environment. Oh, now we've got a good fit. That might work. And sometimes it's just a question of timing. Sometimes the idea is good, but you just don't like each other. And sometimes you like each other, the timing's great, but the project doesn't fit. So if you have all three of them, that's where the magic happens. You have to be able to think about it without it getting personal. It's just about the fit. So Breakout West, we already figured out, breaking out of the West. And what's interesting about Breakout West, which people don't always realize, is Breakout West is not specific to one genre. It used to be seen as something that was very rock and pop. That usually is a reflection of the music organizations provincially. But if you look at most of them now, and it depends on the diversity in the regions too, right? But there's more and more diversity in music and in the people, and that's reflected in the music. So they'll tend to try and have sort of like the rap hip hop stage and the roots stage and kind of put world where they can fit it. But country, there might be a bit of that in Alberta. You might not find that as prevalent in other places. So it really depends on who it is. But all of these genres also have their own dedicated showcases, right? And a lot of artists tend to like the dedicated ones because that's where you find your people. But when like Breakout West, you find people who understand that you want to get out of here. So they're going to help you on the way. And they already know part of your story because they've been here before and they're happy to be coming to Calgary. For them, that's like really exotic, a lot more fun than Toronto. So, okay, inside story. I'll just show you some photos. So what an event looks like. So it's music, and the music experience can be I'm playing in a bar, or it can be, this was a showcase in London with William Prince, and he was just alone in the museum there, and then tons of people watching him, but he became like a music, I don't know what their concept was, but very different. You have no idea what you're getting into. And even Breakout West, some of the stages are like lobby, and people have found themselves under a staircase, or they find themselves in a tiny little kind of artsy alternative venue, or they can be on a massive stage. So you don't really know, and you need to find out when you're performing at when. And usually they try and you'll perform twice, and you'll have one great stage and then one alternative, and it allows people to see you in two different places. And here again, the music, it could be in a hotel room. You can make it look beautiful, just like a venue. You know, lights go a long way. That was a room that we had set up. It's also the conference. So sometimes you get some real heavy hitters, people you've read about or heard about, and they're there on stage, and there are only 100 people in the room. And if you ask a question, they're going to notice you. That's way better than like, you know, hoping you'll bump into somebody one day. So you go, you learn, but it can also be the smaller rooms, the smaller circles. Awards. Now, a lot of people diss awards, right? Like, and I think there's a lot of conversation, and there's a lot of discussion about whether artists should be pitted against each other, right? Like, competition is just doesn't seem to go with the spirit of collaboration and the rest. But I saw it when I was at the Western Canadian Music Awards. The way I presented it is it's a chance to recognize the hard work you've put in and to celebrate that, and for you to celebrate your team. So, you know, the awards are done better and better, and they can be really, if you go with the idea, I'm here to celebrate and I'm going to cheer on my friends, it's a good party, and it's a good moment. It's kind of a break from the hustling and the rest. And then the marketplace. So sometimes a marketplace is where you get to put your little stand with your album and people come to you, or sometimes it's you going around. This was at Folk Music or Folk Alliance International, where you go to every radio station, stand in line, and then you pitch them for 2 seconds, and they're just looking for good music. But it's also networking. And so, for example, I put this one here. It's an older one, but Amy Terrien is going to be at Breakout West. So she's the executive director of the Music Managers Forum, which is for music managers in Canada. And so she will organize a few meetups. And so if you're a music manager, you can go to the meetup. So there'll be different interest groups who create these networking moments. They're not on the official schedule, but it's a good way to kind of pay attention. And if ever you're wondering, man, I'm tired, I think I just want to sleep, or I just want to chill out, it's just, sometimes it's just when you don't want to go out and you go out, that's when you meet that one person. And for me, a conference is a success if you've met one great contact and learn one new thing. That's, that's priceless. After you have to decide what it is for you, but that's what it is for me. Behind the scenes, this is Folk Music Ontario photos, but a lot of people work really hard. And I think I left this in here because when you go to Breakout West, it'll be really easy to criticize anything. You can criticize any conference, especially one that changes cities every year, which Breakout West does. It's not always at the airport in Mississauga. But the counterpart of that means that the team is also learning new venues and working with new teams. So, being patient and understanding that and being appreciative of the effort and understanding that there's effort, even if you don't know exactly what it is, but it's a year of work to put together a 3-day event. It's mind-boggling. It's just something good to remember for you and for them. The other thing too is around any conference, you have lots of other partnerships going around. Like the Sound Off Virtual Summit was built as part of on the road to Breakout West, so to speak. So those opportunities are there, but you're going to have people like here's PACA Agency, and the agents are going to be telling people, hey, come see the artist that I represent. And then you're going to have others saying, come check this out. So there are a lot of people with their own agendas going out and trying to get people into the shows. And if you have a showcase and there are a few showcases at the same time, you have to hustle a little bit and be strategic about who you want to come see you. If you just wait for people to come, they're not going to come if they don't have a reason to come. So you need to give them a reason by just saying hi. Like if you meet them at a one-on-one, make sure you invite them and and let them know that you'd love to see them. But then it's also, you need to know who they are. I had one woman in a one-on-one who was all about Celtic music and talked about Celtic this and that. And I said to her, quite honestly, I don't think William's the artist you need. There is a great artist right there, right in Hamilton, just right there. Or they're right there, who's fantastic. You need to go to their showcase. And they did. And it was exactly the perfect fit. So I think you don't have to please everybody. It would be a nightmare if you did. Just being focused, bringing them here, but knowing everybody's doing the same thing. Okay, and then stages of all sorts. I think we already went through that. Lots of different stages. Sometimes the deadly hotel room with the ugly decor, and sometimes this incredible stage that can be set up, and sometimes it's a hotel room with some really crappy lights. But at the end of the day, anybody going to hear the music doesn't, like, they don't care. They're here to look at how you're doing in that setup too, right? So not being too precious is important. And sometimes you get really, really intimate. But the one here with this guy, the violinist, is one of the best showcase concerts I've ever seen, where he had a harp virtuoso, and suddenly like people were just right out of the hotel rooms. It was crazy. Genre-based festivals, we saw folk lights out there. It's Rain Hamilton I was talking about, Cecile with the blues, the folk, and also around big events. If, for example, if you can get into a Juno Fest, if you're an Ottawa artist, it's great. You get all the industry. Or if Juno ever comes, it will come to Calgary at some point. Well, the day Juno's comes to Calgary, make sure you get into a little subfest or create your own opportunity or volunteer or something, but get out there. William was nominated for a Juno for 2, and where we made most of the contacts were through all these other showcases and events around it, the opportunities. Plus he got to sing at the Junos, and that was life-changing. International festivals are fun. They're all different. You have to do the same homework. And you get local specialized as well. So Aurore Montréal, for example, Penelope would represent Canadian music in Paris. Like, it's so specific. And they even have speed meeting with an accent right next to Paris. So, you're bringing your band to Paris to meet French people who really already love you because you're Canadian and not French. It's kind of like the perfect situation. And then we have close to home. And quite honestly, the local teams do tremendous work for their artists. And some of the best gigs that you will ever have will be the ones that Music Calgary or Alberta Music or any local organization Francophone has put together by connecting you to the right person. So don't think you have to go to the Great Escape in London to meet the British person who's going to hire you. You can meet them right here in Western Canada. So I'm going to run through the tips. I'm going to sound like a grandma or a school mistress or whatever, or they used to call me the momager. Apparently that's an insult. I took it as a great compliment, but here we go. I'm going full on momager with you. And I'm just going to tell you straight out what to do, what not to do. And then it's always coming from a place of observation, opinion, and well-intention. You can take it or leave it. You don't have to follow it, but I'm going to tell you out loud what people are saying behind the backs. So talent gets you to the door, but drive opens it. Okay, that's I say that, and then character and kindness keep you in the room. And actually, I'm going to add that here. 5 years ago, I was at a conference, and they asked the panelists if somebody amazing talent but was a real jerk, would you still work with them? And I'd say 4 out of 5 said yes, yeah, we would. Talent. And then just before the pandemic, same type of conference, same question. 100% of people said no. Only one guy, I don't know if he's still around, but people are like, no, it's not. First of all, we don't want to work with jerks. There's been the Me Too movement. There's been Black Lives Matter. There've been a lot of things. If you are coming and you're entitled and you're a jerk, we're just not going to work with you. We're going to work with somebody who is going to make it fun for everyone. Because right now we value our volunteers and our stage crews and our ticket crews. It's a whole team to put on a show. So the day of the diva or the day of, the person on stage who gets to break a guitar, like I saw one recently and I just wanted to go out there and say, there's a kid who could play that guitar. Don't go break the guitar. I was just outraged. So there's been a shift. So yeah, I don't care how talented you are. I can tell you there are 10,000 Filipinos who can sing Beyonce better than Beyonce. I've met them in the Middle East where you get talent comes also with discipline. I think it's overrated, to be honest. You have to have the drive. You have to have a message. You have to have the personality. You have to be kind. So, okay, I really sound like a mom. Oh, let's move on. Before you go, do your homework. Set your intention for the event. Set it with your band. Sit down with your event. One of my favorite conferences was with Jeremy and the Hounds. They're going to be at Breakout West this year. And they're a big band. We sat down and we decided we managed to cover every single conference. Every band member went to a different conference and then checked in and gave the Coles notes. They had a whole strategy. Never be alone, always be two. But if you're two, always talk to someone. It was beautiful to watch them. They knew why they were there and they did a great job. Find out who's coming. So almost every conference that gets funding has to publish the delegates. They're online, and creep them. Find out, and if they've been to a few of them, you're going to get to know what the families are and who they hang out with. Look at the photos. Who are their friends? Oh, I see. There's something going on here. When you look at someone, here's Kim Temple. I want to give this as an example. It says she's from Music Publishers Canada. You're like, oh, I'm not interested in publishing, or maybe, or oh, it's an organization. Don't go. Now click. When you click on it, what you find out, I don't know what this black space is, but anyway, computers are hateful, but she's the president of High Priestess Publishing, director of licensing and publishing at Six Shooter Records. Oh, now that's interesting. Start creeping, you find out, well, she was at Six Shooters, created her own publishing. It's tied to Six Shooters, is totally connected to that group, knows the people, happens to be senior manager, programming, industry relations, music publishers, probably one of the most connected people that you'll meet, who also happens to be a professional drummer, is also one of the coolest people I've ever been on a panel with and co-taught. So suddenly, Kim's not just a name and a job. Kim's a very interesting person. And the more you prepare, don't think you need 100 people. You need 5 people that you're connecting and inviting. So find out a little bit, but don't go all creepy, oh, I have a cat called Tickles. And what's that about? No. But, enough to find something you might have in common. Who do you want to connect with? How are you going to communicate with them? So the marketing plan is really just that. Who am I connecting? What am I bringing? Nowadays, there's a lot less paper because we want to protect this planet. So maybe just a postcard. You don't have to bring everything, or even just, you don't have to bring a USB key. Most people don't take CDs anymore. They're just heavy in the suitcase and so be practical about it, but have at least a card or something. And I love postcards. That's my thing. Or 1-inch pins are fun too, but the postcard where you have a photo, something that really speaks to your brand, and on the back, short bio, all the contacts you need, and then a little bit of the news. And here's a card that goes well with the person, singer-songwriter, Métis Manitoban. Yeah, it fits. It looks great. If it were heavy metal, you might have different colors or different choices. So it's better to have one tool that pops than to have like 100 tools. Okay, on the spot. Almost that's before. Take time on the spot while you're there. This is what I'm going to sound really like a mama. Practice as if you're the worst, perform as if you're the best. I love that saying, right? Like you go on there and you give the best show, and it doesn't matter if there are 2 people in the room, because they may be the 2 people who are scouting you to see if they bring another 40 people at the later show. And never feel disappointed. It's not a contest. Just because somebody's playing in the next room, they have 150 and you've got like 6. Just means somebody's working their team, or maybe there's a cocktail special in the bar. You don't know. But you know that right now you have 6 people and they chose to come see you. So you play the show of your life and have fun with it. Deliver it as if it were your last show. It's the best way to make a great first impression. Like you just put it on, like, look at Ed, like Ed, if you've never seen Apollo's Sons, he's so into it. And whether you're into his music or not at first, by the time you leave, you're just going to like him because they're so dedicated. And here the Sweet Glories as well. Amazing show. And I took that photo just sitting in front, wasn't expecting it. I'll never forget that show. And people will ask me, oh, have you heard of them, the Small Glories? Like, have you, I'll be like, oh my God, breathtaking. You can book them. Like, no, there's no doubts they will deliver. Look at that photo, like totally committed. Here are all the things I hear. So set your intention for the show. What's it about? For God's sakes, create a set list. Don't go up and say, oh, I didn't prepare a set list. I thought I'd just feed off the audience. The audience is giving you nothing. They want something from you. So prepare a set list. Now, here's a controversial. Some people say no covers, some people whatever. If you do a cover, have a reason for doing it. It has to be compelling. You met them when you were 7 and that song has carried you through. You're going to play it now as an homage moment, whatever. But if you're playing a cover because you don't have enough songs and you're playing your covers better than your songs and the covers sound great and your songs sound crap, you've just now written yourself out of the music industry. So like, be really intentional. Your banter, that's another one. Every song, just think of what's the point of the song, and you don't have to rehearse word for word because then it's too contrived, but know what you want to say about the song. And sometimes if you feel like, oh man, I kind of went off here, then do 2 songs. You don't have to speak between every song. People are there to hear your music. Do not do, well, I'm at this in terms of time. Don't do the extended version of your song. Nobody wants to hear the extended version of the song. Do a short version of the song. I'd rather hear 3 short songs and hope to connect to one than have one and I'm like, oh my God, are they over yet or whatever? Because the people listening will have heard hundreds of songs by the end of the weekend, right? It's a visual experience too. Think about the stage. What are they looking at? If you don't move, and I see the same thing for 3 hours, I haven't seen a show. I've seen basically a CD that I could have listened to while sitting on on a beach, drinking a beer. And now, no, I have to look at you looking like nothing. And I don't know what it is in Western Canada, but nobody dresses up, it seems to me. Do not look like you rolled out of bed and onto the stage, and this one's got like disheveled, and this one's this, and this one looks like he just repaired somebody's car, and this one looks like, she just came in from her office job. Like, for goodness sakes, have something that makes sense. Work with somebody who's going to help take your personality and show it. Have a uniform. When I say a uniform, it might be jeans and a t-shirt, but when you put it on, you are not the same person as when you're in a crowd. I think it's really important. And visually, like, don't wear flat white. Read some theater books. You never wear flat white because it reflects, it bounces off the light. So photos look crazy. In theater, they splatter it, right, to break the light. So think about it. Read up on it. and think about, how do I create space so there's something going on without it being so distracting either. We don't need people jumping all over the stage. But anyway, make sure your name's visible on the stage. People take photos and they'll be like, what was that band? Oh, the name's right there. Like even in neons, it's great. Have someone in the audience to rep you. It's exhausting having to talk to anyone after you've just poured your energy into a show. Most of all, enjoy it. Like, you're there because you love the music and you want to play. So you don't have to be nervous about the show. Once you're playing because you play music. You're not there to impress anyone. You are there to be yourself. And if they're not impressed, it wasn't meant to be. And if they are impressed, well, then you get to continue your career on the basis of who you are, authenticity. And that's a kind of a beautiful thing. So let me wrap this up. Yeah, value your audience, small audiences. You'll see that with the like folk music and the rest. Even Breakout West, you can have all sorts of sizes. Say yes to spontaneous acts. A great story, Elijah Beck. I think he's showcasing. He did a course that I taught, and I was running Breakout West, and he was like, "Can I help?" And I was like, "Hey, you're not playing, but why don't you just shadow the team? We'll just put you and just learn about a conference, just hang around." And because the planes were late, we ended up in the hotel with 40 international delegates who arrived at the same time. They were tired and exhausted with these Air Canada strikes. Get to the hotel was slow, and I was like, oh God, everybody's in a bad mood. And he was just there, and I was like, Elijah, have you got your guitar? And he's like, always. And I was like, this is really random, but you want to play a couple songs in the lobby, like just pass the time? He wasn't a showcase artist. He wasn't on the schedule. He performed. He walked out of there with 5. I still got goosebumps thinking about it. He got his agent. He went to Latin. Like they fell in love with him because that was the music that suddenly reminded everyone why they had traveled all the way to Whitehorse, right? So if somebody's like, oh shit, somebody didn't turn up, whether that's for a festival or a showcase, like, can you step in? Like, don't be precious. Yes, absolutely. I will play as long as you want. Like, here's another spontaneous one in the lobby, hotel lobby I went to, and it was at Folk Alliance, and suddenly somebody asked, you don't impose yourself, but if somebody says, hey, play us a tune, that's when or when another artist asks you to hop in or collaborate, like be open for those wild cards. Learn something. There's always so much to learn about the economy. It'll remind you that, yeah, it's so easy to think there's nothing left. There's billions of dollars left. You just got to go find them. Some little things. If you have a delegate program, book your formal one-on-ones, reach out informally, let them know, set your intention. So for every single delegate, my little go-to thing that has worked is, for every conference, I always prepare one question. And it's not a random question, right? Like, it's a question for that person. Oh, you have a festival. What is your key priority this year? Or what are some of the concerns that you have leading up? Or with this post-pandemic, what are you looking for? How can an artist help? And if you have one question for each person that you're genuinely interested in learning, then they're going to ask you a question. So that's good. Show up on time. I shouldn't have to say this. Do you know how many no-shows there are for meetings? If you don't turn up for a one-on-one meeting, it's pretty well guaranteed that they will never, ever, ever hire you. And if they're pissed off because they've been sitting in that hot room for 3 hours and you didn't turn up, but they have to stay there because there's someone else, they're going to make sure nobody else, like, they're going to be so mad at you. So just turn up. Also, clean, sober, and engaged, not as in, oh, got engaged and getting married on, crazy wild night last night, but like, I'm here, I'm present, I'm listening to you, I'm interacting. And then the call to action, have a call to action that's very clear. What do you want from that person? Can I send you money? Music, send me money. Can I send you music? If you're releasing a new project, could I send you some music to see how, where it might be placed? People are well-intentioned. They'll be happy to invite them to your show if you have a show coming up. So here we go. We're kind of at the end here. Take in every special event, and for God's sakes, don't ever diss the industry. You can do it between your bandmates, but don't sit there and talk about how shitty music managers are, because that person from that organization might actually also be a manager, right? Or they might look at you and think, wow, if you talk about industry like that and it's all about you, the artist, like, we just don't have time for that discussion. People feel it. Like, everybody knows that there's a situation right now, and everybody's heart goes out to musicians and to artists. But don't, like, don't knock anyone down. Everybody's doing their best. That's the assumption. Find your people. If you have a group, a special interest group, or a group that, whether it's the Francophone, the Indigenous, the hip hop artists, the heavy metalers, whatever, find your people. Also make those connections with the artist. Strengthen your home ties. I put my Manitoban flag here, but you can see the Franco-Manitobans here. These are the memories. We talk about them even today, like remember when or whatever. So find those Calgary people. Go to every single show that any Calgary artist is playing at. Be the smiling face in the audience and bring people and applaud them and nod, smile, even when they got the chord wrong 3 times in a row. Like just, yeah, dance, like come alive, meet the pros, go out. Don't be shy. They're people too. Don't be needy. Don't talk about work when they're socializing and relaxing. Let them ask you about your music. Don't sit there and start pulling things out. Be calm in a frenzied place. This was a picture of Breakout West, and it was just artists. They were so calm and peaceful, even though there was madness. And industry people noticed that. Oh, they're cool. Yeah, it's relaxing. Make new friends. That's part of it too. Support your friends. I just said that. One thing, never, ever, ever hustle during somebody else's show. That's probably the worst faux pas. And I saw somebody do that at a French conference. And I was at a table with 9 presenters who are like, that artist? They ripped up the card in front of me. They said, we were all set to bring them. They were our choice to do, to bring them over to France for a special tour. They're like, oh my God, what an asshole. I'll never. If you are talking and that artist is struggling on stage to be heard because somebody's hustling and taking the attention away, it's just don't do it. Like, I don't think you guys would do it, but somebody always does it at some point. So your audience was for your show. The audience there is for the other person's show. Share the news. Festivals will love you. Find out what the hashtags are and make sure you use them. Tag the festival, tag the funders, thank everybody. Help with the marketing efforts. That's part of the buzz. Tag your friends, celebrate your friends. When you do stories, make sure there's music on the background too. It's kind of sad just to see the image. This video has no music or whatever. But anyway, help with the marketing news, celebrate it. Like not contrived, but spontaneous. Do your best. You're going to have some really shitty gigs. This is Paris Pick in the White Horse Hotel lobby. Probably the worst sound ever. It was in our lounge. That show got Paris Pick agents fighting over her because they were like, if she can play and get everyone rocking in the worst setup, and I was ashamed, this is my conference, but like we're on Whitehorse, that was the only place, like the plugs, whatever, did our best, didn't stop her. And I personally will always appreciate her, and I'd do anything for her because she didn't complain when she could have. And a few artists did, and I don't hold a grudge against them because it was really a bad scene. But that show, I just think of it and I was like, oh man, amazing. Same thing, Kaylee Cardinal. Kaylee Cardinal just goes in there, rocks it, looks like a star. It's a hotel room, looks like a star. Everybody's talking about her show afterwards because it's just so darn good, so pleasant, so easy to work with. That's like doing your best is whoa. And after the event, now that you're exhausted and you just want to forget it and never, ever, ever go to a showcase concert again, just kidding. Wishing for something without tirelessly working for it is like trying to drive a car that has no fuel in it. You've got to keep feeding that relationship, right? So follow up with something that's meaningful, like not just a hi, whatever, but keep your promises. If you said, I'll send music, send it just with a thank you note. Doesn't have to be long. You don't have to ask for anything either. Just want to check. Thanks for your time. Thank you for your feedback, or thank you for that conversation. It meant a lot for me or whatever. And just that little connection will keep it. I write people's names on cards and I keep files because you'll forget. So there we are. Where are we headed? What's next? Well, be true to yourself. Showcases, at the end of the day, they're for you, and embrace them. And probably one of the most powerful moments I've ever seen was Madeline Roger, who up until then I had seen sort of as a shy musician, was at Folk Alliance, and she has a song called 60 Years. It's a feminist song, and she had been playing pretty well alone, just with one or two. And for that song, she called all her female friends, musicians, to come up and sing with her. Everybody had goosebumps. Like, I'm emotional about it even now, and it's been like 4 years. That moment, I just remember thinking, holy shit, if she ever got guts. Like, I was excited as a professional, saying, whoa, that took courage. And musically it was beautiful, but it worked because that's who she is, and she was doing it, and she was going to have her moment and get her message out. So, this is your moment. Play the songs you want to. Don't do what other people think you should do. Do it. If you really want that, do it, and make it fun. And yeah, let's keep looking at new ways of connecting. The world is big now. So Tyler, will end with him. It's I've got to change that word lunch. I see it everywhere. I just recently deprogrammed my brain, but not enough. So when you do a release strategy, showcasing can be part of that release strategy for your album. If it makes sense, go for it. And as long as you can answer these questions, why now? Why Breakout West? Why you? Why is the timing now? Do it. And if it doesn't make sense now, even if they invite you, but it's better in a year, then do it in a year. Life is long. Your career is long. Your career is not, even if you got a hit record tomorrow, one record doesn't pay 40 years of mortgage payments and rent. Like, you need a lasting career. So ease into your career and make the choices that make sense. Unless you want a trip to, Argentina in February, and then you take me with you, but there you go. So that's it. So we went over a little bit the time, but I hope that brought some a little bit of clarity, and I hope I didn't share too many secrets. It doesn't matter. We'll see. Any questions? Do you have any questions out there? I'm going to stop sharing, that way we can stop seeing my face twice and see each other. There we go. Oh, there's a mysterious person I haven't seen. Jinda too, if you want to introduce yourself. Any questions?
I think you pretty much covered all of it. Thank you for that. It was very, very helpful, because like all of this, and I'm sure it has been for many other artists, all these conferences can be pretty overwhelming for an artist, especially ones who maybe aren't super business savvy. I mean, you have to be, though. There's that balance between artists and business, but you're always an artist first, usually.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been very, very helpful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. This is excellent. This makes me a lot more eager to try this for real. So
yeah, and I think it says something really important to remember. Like, my whole position, I think, and Jess will attest to this, it's about empowering the artist. You do not have to do anything you don't want to do. And I'm always hearing artists feeling so pressured that, oh, I have to do it this certain way or that certain way. And I remember with one artist who, looking over and seeing these, we shared a hotel. Folk Music Ontario had the unfortunate experience of sharing a hotel with a hockey conference. We had all these teenage boys trying to duck into the rooms to steal the beer or whatever. And the artist I was with was looking at them, and he was like, I guess I'll never see my kid play hockey. His kid was just a little toddler. I was like, of course you can. Like, this is your choice. Like, you don't actually have to tour in the winter. You can be a festival artist, and then you're an amazing songwriter. You could actually just write songs from October until April, whatever the hockey season is, and go to every single game. Like, you don't actually have to do anything that anybody. I have another one. He hates performing because, as an Indigenous artist, he feels everybody's coming to, it's almost like tragedy porn. Like, I feel very exposed, and that my tragic, the grief of my people is feeding some sort of white consciousness or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's really uncomfortable even to hear. Like, don't do it. If you don't want to be on stage, you actually do not ever have to. What you're earning with serious and the way you write songs will carry you through anything you want to do. So showcasing is one of those things. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And if you want to do it without feeling that, oh, you're selling out or anything. You're doing it because you feel like it, and you do it your way in a discussion. Now, be open to feedback. People are there to help you. But it's as soon as you realize, like, actually, I'm kind of on top of this, it becomes a lot less scary. And you'll see, I hope with this conference, everybody's secret agenda, and you'll be like, okay, they're pushing me to do that, but they just, yeah, they want to keep their funders happy. And, you know, I'll put a couple posts, but I got to keep my music happy and the musician in me happy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Your insight is always so appreciated. And I'm just going to stop the recording so we can keep the conversation going. But thank you so much. MyArtist.Life is where people can find you to learn more from you.
Yeah, and if you're a Calgary artist, we have a deal where you can become one of the pro members just by letting Colleen and Jess know, and we'll get you signed up with that. We have a soft spot for Calgary artists and Edmonton ones too. Penelope, we'll let you in. Linda, are you comfortable? Jinda,